Yeah, I think the spot today is actually about diversity. And, okay, the bright-colored robes, I think, already sort of prove the point on that one. But I think the actual topic of today's talk, rather than asking yourself where the message is coming from, is actually of direct benefit to many of you here today. I hear Macy's is quite strong on deadline management, and possibly you're confronting like several deadlines at once, and even whether you have an interest in other cultures and the wisdom of the East or not, I think already the topic itself has an interest for you, even on a very practical level. And today I'm not going to talk about Buddhism or Eastern cultures or history, but I try to show how a technique from Buddhism is actually of relevance in the present day. And hopefully you can actually have a method to take away with you today at the end, which you can practice on your own when you are up against those deadlines and you just don't know which way to turn. Okay, so a little bit of background first of all. I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes. We'll have meditation for about 20 minutes, and then at the end there'll be a chance for any questions and answers you may think of along the way. So, is stress serious? Should ask you maybe. Feel it serious, or is it just like part of the job? Well, this is statistics from Britain anyway. Bupa is the private medical insurance in Britain, and over 105 million working days are lost each year because of work-related stress. So this is just in the workplace. Again, in the workplace, about 40% of work-related illness, this is from the Health and Safety Executive in Britain, is due to workplace stress again. So it is even bad for managers, because the reason why their employees are dropping like flies is because of the stress which is put on them by, who would that be? So you ask yourself, is it just because of my manager? He's like really tough on me. Maybe that's the reason why I have stress. But actually stress has many facets. And sometimes the same people put under the same stress respond very differently. So that gives us a clue to maybe how the way we respond to stress can actually make the stress have less of an impact for us. Of course, you have the conditions you're under. You've got that deadline looming. So that's one thing. But there's also how the assumptions you carry about, let's say, what's going to happen to you if you miss the deadline, belief systems which you carry around with you. Also, you have your perceptions of the situation. Some people see the world in a more positive light, others in a more negative light, which the glass full, half empty. You have different ways of looking at the same thing. And you have your responses. Some people really take it to heart. They let things get under their skin more easily. And that, again, can affect how the stressful or the stressor actually affects them. So if you take these apart, actually we can start to see maybe a way forward, even without changing the situation you find yourself in, actually how you respond to it. In the old days, they used to talk about two different sorts of stressors, or the situations which cause stress to mount up in people. The type 1 stressors are the things that happen from time to time, momentary sort of things that happen to people. Often you can identify very readily exactly what is causing you the stress. And for those sort of things, usually it's fairly common sense about what to do with it. Often solving the situation actually will solve your stress. For example, you have burned your toast. It's a disaster for an Englishman. Or you have found that your printer has run out of ink just at the moment you want to print an important document. Actually, to relieve yourself from stress in these two situations, you get yourself another slice of bread, or you get yourself a new ink cartridge. And usually that is the end of the story as far as your stress is concerned. For type 1 stressors, usually meditation doesn't have a very great input, apart from maybe thinking through and using your full common sense in order to try to find out a speedy solution to the problem. The real problem, and where meditation tends to come more into its own, is with type 2 stressors, which are more vaguely defined. Often they're things that tend to build up over time and accumulate. The proverbial last straw that broke the horse's back, if that's the right expression, they build up in a way that you're it's unclear exactly what is the thing that's really causing you the stress anymore. And this can be the sort of situation you find yourself in with many deadlines looming at once. So let's say something like an ongoing conflict with your parents who you have to live with, or persistent financial distress. People find themselves in debt, for example. That can be particularly telling. A bad relationship, things that you can't just walk away from very easily. They're not readily resolved, and this is where the problem is more readily solved by dealing with you, the person suffering from the problem, rather than the things out there. No, my husband, he is making me have a lot of stress. Try changing your husband. Did you try that recently? It is a hard and uphill struggle, and sometimes it's quicker just to change yourself and sort of adjust to your situation. So this is how meditation would come in, to changing you, the recipient of the stress. Stress does come in different flavors. You have time stress, stress about that deadline, which is coming up. Anticipatory stress, which is where you're not actually stressed by what you have to do, but you're stressed on the run-up to it. Almost like stage fright. Even the best actors have it. Once they're on stage, they look confident, but before they get on there, they're all nerves. And actually, it's the stress that happens before the performance, which actually probably gives them the stomach ulcers. Situational stress, often situations you find yourself in where you're not in control of the situation, or you can't find a way to put yourself into control of the situation. That can be stressful. Encounter stress, usually a particular person who you fear, who you dread. Coming into contact with that person just sort of makes your hair stand on end or whatever. That, again, is a different flavor of stress. And what I'll try to do today, I think there's just the four, see what sort of contribution meditation can make to each of these sort, whether you'd be better off learning meditation if you have that sort of stress, or whether there is perhaps a more practical way to deal with it. So, time stress. You feel trapped by lack of time to complete a task. So what can you do about it? Well, go away and meditate, because we had a seminar on it last lunchtime. No problem anymore. And then you get your notice. Solutions. This is my recommendation anyway, as I have a sort of inkling of that might not quite work in Macy's. Time management skills. If you don't already have some, then there's probably a lot of good books about this sort of thing. But generally, making better use of your time might be a better solution than just sort of shutting the door and meditating. Things like learning how to prioritize, get the important things done first, not necessarily the urgent ones. For example, if someone phones you up, you're never quite sure just how important that phone call might be. So what you might be doing when the phone rings might actually be more worthy of your attention than the phone. I don't know, probably not if you're on reception, but this is just an example. Sometimes things which tend to keep cutting into your important quality time might not really deserve that attention. And if you can manage to compartmentalize things a little bit better, maybe you can get more done in the day. Secondly, create more time in your day. How can you do that? Some people come to work a little early, before everyone else turns up, in order to get their papers in order, so that when they're actually online working, everything is in its proper order. Just to give them time to think things through quietly, especially if you're a more introverted sort of personality, that can be quite a big contribution to your general well-being. And learn to delegate. Get other people to do it. And then they call you a manager at the end of the day. That would be really good. Be assertive. I'm sure you don't need to remind you of that. Learn to say no. Because if you keep saying yes, then people think you're always going to say yes. But if you say no occasionally, people start to think, hey, this guy has a mind of his own. So, yeah, it can, sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. Let other people sort of, take some of the weight as well. Yeah. So time stress. You don't see meditation in there. Although, saying that, sometimes if you have a clearer mind, you do make better use of your time. So meditation could be in there, but maybe in small letters at the bottom. Anticipatory stress, dread. That something will go wrong, even though you've done it 1,000 times already, but you have this sense of dread, and it's the dread that really makes you suffer beforehand. Here, positive visualization techniques can be of some help. You may have heard of sportsmen using this sort of technique. Visualizing the winning tape when you're going to sprint down the track, that you're there first, and somehow it comes true. Well, there's something in it. But it's almost like going through it in your head in a positive form, and that can help to smooth things out when you actually come to the real performance. Meditation. Okay, simply to take away the nerves. You have an exam coming up, you know the stuff, but because of your nerves you forget it all. You can't get access to it. Simply because your mind is just spinning, So meditation can help as a way to sort of calm you down just before you come to the time when you're, going under the limelight. Boost your confidence to overcome fear of failure. Sometimes simply rehearsing things to the point that you are so familiar with them that there's nothing left to take you by surprise, that can be a good thing to do as well. So if you've got a presentation, do it in front of the mirror a few times beforehand. Situational stress. You have a scary situation and you have no control over it. For example, you're afraid that you're going to get your notice, but surely you have an input into that. It's just that you don't know about how. So if you go and find a little bit more information, so you can become more self-aware, know how you stand, what your rights are, know how the process works, know what counts, what doesn't count in the situation. If you can find out things like that, you feel a lot more confident because you know exactly where you can make a difference. Conflict resolution skills. If your future depends on a particular person, then learning how to deal with people in a sort of, in terms of negotiating out a good deal, can be something that could affect your future in quite a positive way. Learn to think on your feet. I don't know if you can learn that skill, but certainly if you do more of it, you probably become better at it. Emotion management. Again, I haven't mentioned meditation here directly, but certainly managing your emotions it does become more possible if you have a sense of calm within yourself. Anger is a good one, just to sort of give us an example, because once people lose their temper, then it sort of downgrades them a lot in other people's eyes. What you might do might be quite right, but if you get angry about it, then it's always wrong. So it makes a lot of sense to make sure you can control your own emotions, even in difficult situations. Don't let your manners slip, don't let your temper slip, and to have at least that sense of control. Encounter stress, meeting particular people. You worry about interacting with a certain person or group of people, especially your line manager perhaps. Emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman, if you want to go away and read about that. But the real thing comes down to, if you never did a single thing to help anyone else in your life, when you come to call in some favors of your own, generally they are not very sympathetic. But if you're the sort of person who's always lent a helping hand for everyone else, when you come back and you need something from them, often they are a lot more considerate towards you. This is the real sort of bottom line of emotional intelligence. Having a healthy emotional bank account with every person you know. You always done something for that person, this person. You remembered their birthday, you kept a promise, didn't let them down. Yeah, maybe you've called in some favors of your own. You have people ready to help you. Deep breathing exercises, well, it's pretty much the same as meditation. You meet this person and you're like, deep breathing, deep breathing. Or you can meditate. Sometimes it looks a little bit less scary. Deep breathing rather than heavy breathing. Empathy, like see things from other people's point of view occasionally. It can help you to understand why they have it in for you. And then maybe you can sort of unpack that situation a little bit more accurately. So, meditation contributes to some forms of stress in a constructive way. And there has actually been some clinical trials done with meditation. And I pick a particular example because it is the sort of meditation I'm going to teach you in a few moments, to do with countering some of the symptoms of stress by doing more meditation. There's a particular trial where there are two groups of people who, over a 6-week period, meditated once a day for an hour. The group that didn't meditate is in the green. The group that did meditate is in the red. And as they went on, they found that their blood pressure, which is one of the facets of stress, was actually reduced and stayed low, significantly low, in the groups that did the meditation. So rather than taking blood pressure pills, they actually were starting to solve the problem of the high blood pressure from the source. You can also measure stress in terms of a certain hormone which is secreted in the blood called cortisol. Apparently you can take it off a swab of your tongue these days if you want to find out if you are likely to be a stressed person. But yeah, in the old days they used to sort of take a blood sample. And also that works in the same way, is reduced by the people who meditate. And, in those who don't, then it's sort of random. So there is a sense of reducing stress not by its symptoms, but actually at the roots of the problem. The things that are causing the secretion of the cortisol or causing the high blood pressure. Same would go for high pulse rate and the other aspects of stress. So there is something to be said for meditation as a way of counteracting stress from a preventative point of view. So, instead of changing your world, it is possible that learning how to meditate can be a way of actually insulating yourself against the ups and downs of the world. Making yourself a good pair of shoes is better than carpeting the whole world. And meditation, I would suggest, is one way in which you can do that from the point of view of stress. So what is this meditation business all about? Well, from B we've heard it's something to do with the mind, but the mind in terms of how to practice meditation is very different from maybe the mind as you would define it if you're talking to a physiologist. So physiologists would say, well, it's your brain and it's your nervous system. It's all the hardware. But when we're talking about the mind, we mean something rather different, which is like the software which you're running on that hardware. If you are into reading Kussler, the Ghost in the Machine. To give an example, some days you wake up in the morning and you feel really like you can't think things through very clearly. It's like when you say things, you say all the wrong things, you're clumsy, you forget things, everything you touch that day is a complete disaster. It's the same you as yesterday, but it's like today it's just not working for you. We'd say that that's a quality of your inner sense of awareness. If you like, your state of mind. That's what we're working with the meditation. Other days, just by random, everything can be smooth in your life. You think things through clearly, you say all the right things to people, everything you touch is a success. You seem to manage to complete things quicker than usual. It's the same you, but it's a different state of mind. Most of us encounter these ups and downs from day to day, but what tends to happen is that we just try to avoid doing too much on the bad days so that we create as few catastrophes as possible. But with meditation, what we're talking about is taking that state of mind and actually turning it around into a better one. So actually taking back control of it instead of being the victim. So there are many different ways of meditating. Probably the most commonly known one is meditation on breathing, hence deep breathing exercises. But one I'm going to teach today, which I think is probably more straightforward still, is using something called visualization. Not visualization of the winning tape for the sprinters, but actually visualization of something much simpler, thinking of a picture such as the sun shining in the sky. Can you think of that? Not too difficult? Can anyone put up their hand and tell me what color the sun is when you're thinking of it? Any guinea pigs? Yes, go on. Yellow. So it has a color. Just like when you look out the window, you see the sun, it has a color. But yet we're not actually looking out the window, are we? And yet it still has color. Normally you see objects with color, you associate it with perception via your eyesight. But in this case, it's not your eyes that you're using. It's actually your mind's eye. And things that you see with your mind directly actually have color as well. They can do anyway. So in effect, you have 6 senses, not just your eyes, ears, sense of taste, smell, and touch. You've got one extra one, which is your ability to perceive things directly with your mind's eye. So you've got a 6th sense. That's something already which hopefully hasn't put you off your lunch today. Makes it worthwhile to come along. So we're working with the mind. And what the visualization does for us is it gives us a handle on the mind. Generally, our mind is not something we can see. We can't go along to our doctor and get an x-ray of it. So that's hard to work with, right? Something you can't see might just be your imagination. But if we have a picture in our mind, the interesting thing is wherever we take the picture, the mind will follow, because it's created by the mind. And what we'd like to do in meditation is to bring body and mind into some sort of balance, given that we can sometimes be in one place and our mind in another place completely. We are walking down the shopping mall and we see all the things out of place in the Macy shop window. Our mind is there instead, it's not with us. So you think, well, that's great, that's multitasking. But there's a downside, which is if body and mind are separated by a long distance, separated for a long length of time, you tend to pick up a lot of negative emotions from the world around you in a way that you have no control over. It's like going out of your house and leaving the door open. You come back and you find it's filled with a lot of things you didn't expect or even want. Yeah, that's what it's like with the mind. So bringing body and mind back together actually puts you back in control. So we're going to get the mind to come back inside the body by bringing that picture inside the body. So far so good? Now allow me just to flick back through some of these slides a little bit. Because I think we've got it back to front. Nearly there. Yeah. So, in an average meditation, there is a sort of pre-flight that we do. And the pre-flight is, we have to make sure our body is relaxed. Having said that meditation is about the mind, but for it to be entirely about the mind, your body needs to be comfortable enough to actually forget about it. So even if you're sitting on your comfy chair, you have to make sure that all the muscles in your body are relaxed. Generally, we sit up fairly straight if we're doing meditation. Sitting cross-legged, that's always good, but maybe do it at home. But even on a chair, it's useful to sit upright. And usually the first 5 minutes of the meditation is spent slowing down by breathing deeply, and then going through a sequence of scanning down through our body, making sure each and every muscle in our body is actually relaxed. You might think, well, I'm a relaxed person. No, I don't need to do that. But once you actually check, you often find there are knots and tensions in your body you weren't aware of before. By relaxing those, it becomes easier to forget about your body. From there, we move on to relaxing our mental state. And that means basically emptying your mind. So you've got all this stuff in your mind, junk perhaps, really important junk often, but you put it on one side. Open up a space in your mind in which to do the meditation. Usually you've got say you've got 100 thoughts in your mind at once, you can get about 90 of them and put them on one side. Leaves you with about 10%. Okay, it's never possible to get rid of them all at once, but at least you reduce what you have to deal with in your meditation itself. And then, having relaxed your body, relaxed your mind, you come to the point of doing this exercise with the visualization. Visualizing a bright object. And I'll mention exactly where in a moment, but it's somewhere in the area of your stomach. Simply because that's the point of balance of your body. If you're into tightrope walking, then that is also a very important point because it has to remain over the rope at all times. It's the same thing with bringing body and mind into some sort of balance. Body and mind are both there, then somehow things sort of drop into place more easily. So you bring your picture there. Sometimes it wanders off, you bring it back again. Sometimes the picture stays but your mind wanders off. You bring your mind back again. The picture changes, that's all good, just follow it in its new form. But there is one more thing. This is where it gets weird. This is where you need a mantra. You might already have one, I don't know. In some business circles they have a mantra like, kill the competition or something like that. You know, if you say it often enough, then you end up as a sort of market leader or something. I don't know. But here we have a much more peaceful one. And if you don't happen to have one of your own, you can borrow this one. It's actually an Indian word. Samma arahang. Samma arahang, which means a pure state of mind achieved in a proper way. It's a little sort of ambition which you can carry around for yourself. Please don't say it out loud. Otherwise, it will be really embarrassing for everybody. But it's as if you hear the sound of that word coming up from the center of your brightness. And if you don't like this one, you can make up your own one. So if you happen to have a word which is more inspiring from your own cultural or religious tradition, that is just fine. It should be something that keeps your interest at the very least. So you're doing two things at once. Having relaxed your body, relaxed your mind, focusing in your center. In your center, you're thinking about a bright object, and from the object is coming the sound of that mantra. I didn't tell you why. Because if you don't have a mantra, there'll be all these thoughts coming into your mind, or that 10% that you didn't deal with just now. And for some people, especially in higher management, it can be a torrent of thoughts. It's not just like the odd thought, hey, what am I doing here? It might be like just full on, like a complete barrage of thoughts in your mind. As you become better in meditation, the thoughts become less. You can get away with just sort of ignoring them. But at this stage, and I think most of you are here because this is a problem for you, the sort of problem where you can't get to sleep at the end of the day because of all the thoughts in your mind. And there's worse than that. Some people like panic. They have muscle convulsions because of all the thoughts in their mind. This is really where the stress comes from. So the mantra is a way of actually blocking out the thoughts. The theory goes that if you've already got something in your mind, in the verbal department, then it's very hard for other verbal content, such as thoughts, to actually thrive. So you're closing that channel to the thoughts. It's a bit of a struggle, always. Like Bea was saying, when she started out, it was quite hard work. But, little by little, it does become easier. Yeah? So, final thing is a diagram. That's the place down there. If you want to be really precise, at the level of your navel, if you were to take a section through yourself, the actual point would be in the center, but 2 finger breadths above that point. But the idea is not to worry too much about left a bit, right a bit. Generally, if you get the right place, you can actually feel where it is. It also matches with the point where the breath turns around between the in-breath and the out-breath. It's a point of stillness even for the breath. So far, so good? Well, we have a little bit of time. I'll try to give you as much time as possible with the actual meditation itself. And I suggest that you sit comfortably, but not too comfortably. Sitting fairly upright, often with 2 feet flat on the floor. Or for people who are lucky enough not to have a chair, they can actually sit on the floor. In which case, cross-legged is generally good. The way we put our hands together.
The people that are saying back should be my
Yeah, if you like to come down to the front, there's a lot of space down here, and you can be in the front row, and you can see even more clearly as well. So please don't feel embarrassed to come right forward. Putting our hands together is with the right hand on top of the left hand. The index finger of the right hand goes against the thumb of the left hand. You might think, well, why is that? If you're on a chair, you can sometimes get sleepy. Sometimes all that sleep you haven't had for the past month suddenly sort of catches up on you. Usually, if you do get sleepy, your finger slips first before you slip off the chair. So it's a little bit of advance warning, sort of safety procedure for your meditation practice. Yeah. Apart from that, please sit in a relaxed way. Okay? And what I'll do is, you don't have to remember everything I've just said, you know the principles of it, but I'll actually lead you through step by step in a way that's a little bit easier to follow. But if you're thinking of practicing meditation at home, then try to remember it as well. So if you'd like to start, first of all, by closing your eyes really gently. Closing your eyes in much the same way you might close them if you were going to go to sleep. Adjust your body to be in a posture where you can sit for a long, long time without having to worry too much about changing position anymore. Take a few deep breaths to yourself, breathing in the air from around you to the full extent of your lungs and breathing slowly and smoothly out again. Once again, you can breathe in the cool spring air, and as you breathe out, you may feel that you're letting go of any previous worries and concerns that you had. From there, we make a scan down through our body, starting at the top of our head and working our way gradually down, relaxing each and every muscle as we go. So we start by relaxing the muscles of our forehead, releasing any tension there before moving on down to our eyebrows and our eyelids, making sure that even the way we've closed our eyes is as gentle as possible. There's no need to squeeze our eyes tightly shut. We allow the muscles of our body to become relaxed, especially our face, allowing them to soften, making sure we're not gritting our teeth together, relaxing our neck. If there's any tension in our shoulders, we allow our shoulders to drop to their natural height. Before relaxing both arms, forearms, hands and fingers, so that our hands seem to rest only very gently in our lap. Then we relax the whole of our torso, chest, trunk and abdomen, releasing any tension in those muscles. Both legs, all the way down to our feet and our toes. So that now if we were to check throughout the whole of our body, we'd be fairly assured that there's no remaining part of ourselves with any stress or tension anymore. If we do notice places here and there where there is stress, then we do our best to relax it, allowing our body the sensation as if it seems to merge with the atmosphere around us. So the only thing left of our body seems to be the feeling on the inside. But inside of us, in the same way, we put aside any worries and concerns about our everyday life, work, friends, family, studies. Put these things on hold for now. Regrets about the past, speculations about the future, also shedding these things like unwanted baggage. Leaving ourselves with the present moment and the task in hand, helping to find a place and a space in our lives where our minds can actually settle and come back into balance. We conjure up a feeling within ourselves of happiness and joy, as if that same sense of tranquility and peace pervaded the whole of our body and mind. When we feel ready, relaxed and refreshed, we imagine that inside our body is really just an empty space, a hollow cavity, without any organs or tissues, muscles or bones. And inside that empty space of our body, somewhere in the area of our stomach, we remember back once again to that picture which we saw earlier, of the bright, shining sun. This time, instead of being in the sky, the picture appears in miniature, shining at the center of our stomach. We don't worry too much at this stage if the picture is actually very clear or not. Accept it even if it is vague. Some newcomers tend to say it's more like feeling a picture than actually seeing it. If we find our attention is distracted away by things outside ourselves, we simply bring our attention back again to that picture each and every time. Each time we bring it back, it will become a little bit easier. The picture disappears, we can think of a new one. But if the picture transforms, then we can simply follow it in its new form. As for the possible problem of there being thoughts in the mind, we add a second component to our meditation practice, which is to hear the sound of the mantra coming up as if from the center of our body, from the same place as the bright object, but with the silent sound of the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, over and over again, lightly, gently and continuously, helping to link our whole awareness with this bright point in our center, while at the same time helping to reduce the number of extraneous thoughts, random thoughts, which would otherwise invade our mind. In the beginning, we'll find our mind stays, perhaps only for a few seconds, wandering away for minutes at a time. But each time we bring it back, it will become a little bit easier to keep it there next time round, until our mind is staying for minutes at a time, wandering away only for seconds. And little by little there will be a sense in which you build up mastery at the center, where there's a new sort of feeling which seems to arise at that central point, which helps you to know exactly the right place to actually maintain your mind. A sense of peace, something which draws the mind deeper in some sense. The only other thing which is really worth mentioning is that the way we deal with the mind needs to be as gentle as possible. We never get anywhere in meditation by forcing the mind, trying to hurry or compete. Very different than from in the outside world. But on the inside, it's about setting up the conditions and allowing it to run, letting our mind settle, letting the dynamics of the meditation actually emerge in their own time. So we maintain our attention at the center, lightly, gently, continuously, by means of that bright object, but also the sound of the mantra, which helps to keep our mind free of thoughts for a few more moments in silence until we come to the appropriate time. So when you're ready, slowly and very gently, you can actually come to the end of your meditation practice, opening your eyes again, returning to the outside world. If you feel uncomfortable, then change to a more comfortable position and then slowly finish your practice. So, given the limits of time available today, you have now a technique, I hope, which you find that is not too taxing. But hopefully you found that there's something at least for you to focus on when you close your eyes. Am I right? For some people it may be more visual. For some people, if it's not visual, don't feel like you're a flop. It may be something you can feel more. If you're more in these touchy-feely people, that tends to be how things start out, which is also just fine. Because it isn't about what you see in your meditation, but it's about what you can do to maximize the length of time your mind stays peacefully, free of thought, in that point in your center. However you manage to do that is fine, and it does differ from person to person. Today's meditation was very short. It was only about 10 minutes long. But I would recommend for those who wish to go further with it to try to find about 20 minutes at home per day to meditate. Find a time of the day which is good for you to fit into your routine. Sit down and meditate at that time. And it does get easier with practice. It's like a new skill, a new sport. It will gradually build up a sense of proficiency to a point where the calm that you got during the meditation will actually stay with you during other aspects of your day, even your working day at Macy's. So thank you very much indeed. Yes, and there may be some questions which you'd like to bring up. I'll do my best to answer them. Is there a roving mic? Well, yes, the question was, if you fall asleep during a meditation, do you still get the benefits? Generally, you don't fall asleep for the whole of the meditation. And it's usually it's like nodding off, so-called like catnapping, what they call a power sleep or something. So you nod off just briefly, and actually, when you come round, which is usually only a moment later, you actually find yourself in a point which is a very good place of balance in your meditation, where you're neither stressed out nor too relaxed. And that's actually a very good time to actually continue your meditation, because then you will get benefits. You don't get benefits during the sleeping bit, but the sleep puts you in a place where you're actually in a point of equilibrium, which is very valuable to continue your meditation. If you really are too tired out to meditate, and you find that you set yourself 20 minutes meditation and you really are asleep for the whole of it, you might be better off to have a nap first and then come back to it, and then you would definitely get the benefits. But even for those who are poor sleepers, the meditation actually puts you in a place where you have a better night's sleep. So I guess you get benefits even that way. Yeah, we have another in the front row.
I typically, when I meditate by myself, but I really enjoyed this today. Are there additional benefits to meditating with other people rather than doing the practice by yourself?
Again, different things suit different people. Sorry, should I repeat the question? No, it's fine. Some people are really like lone wolves, and they do find that just having people around them annoys them, even if they just know they're there. But generally, people find that others meditating around them set a sort of vibration, which actually helps their own meditation. There's something about having people around you who are also peaceful in their minds that actually sort of magnifies your efforts in your own meditation. And for this reason, even if you don't regularly meditate as a group, to have that chance from time to time is quite a big morale booster as a person who practices meditation on a regular basis. So often I recommend, even if people meditate on their own at home, to have a chance once a week, let's say, to meditate along with a group. And it's just moral support. But you also actually feel the effect when you are meditating, that it's like sitting down and somehow you can go deeper into your practice. So I do think there is a benefit in that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, because often on Wednesdays we meet at the Tilly location. Actually, Scott's been meditating with us for about 6 months now, and I always encourage our members to continue to join weekly, because meditation is a practice that's really hard to kind of do on your own in the beginning. It's it's much easier to have a support group, and also most of the people don't meditate on a regular basis. But at least if you come once a week and you instill that habit into your life, slowly you'll start to meditate daily. It's a commitment that you make for yourself. For example, even for me, it took me a year of just meditating once a week, even though I formed the group. But it's hard to really find the importance and carve some time for yourself to meditate. But having a group really is a very big support in terms of helping you instill that practice into your life.
How about music? Is that good or bad or conducive? Or
I had the same question from high school students yesterday, and my response to them was it can depend on the music. Some people like to have some music in the background, and the sort of things that tend to work well are new age instrumental music, sounds of nature, bird song, waterfalls, this sort of thing, but rather not heavy metal and rap. And then again, some people do like complete silence. So it depends on you. And really the best way forward is to try different things and keep a note of it. And then you find out what really maximizes your time meditating. Because from one person to the next, it's not the same. It's down to personal preferences. And sometimes unless you try it, you don't know. So yes, it can be helpful. And if you're in a noisy environment anyway, then sometimes it can help to drown out some of that noise as well in a more peaceful way. Yes.
I know meditation since my childhood. I've been trying to practice, but I really did not get into the habit of it. But your technique, is it universal technique everyone uses? I know a lot of groups, they do meditate or in different techniques, or it's just the universal technique is used by everybody? And are there any prerequisites to get into the habit quickly?
I chose to teach this meditation today because it really is fairly foolproof. And there are a lot of different methods of meditation, some of which do have like loopholes in them, where I think I wouldn't dare to let you loose on some of those practices, which sometimes can sort of smack more of hypnotism than meditation. You know what hypnotism is, right? Like, follow the... Yeah. You can get into some things, you can't get out of them again by yourself without a person clicking their fingers. I wouldn't recommend that sort of thing. So focusing inwardly is always a prerequisite to a safe meditation, which you can perform on your own. So saying that there are different methods of meditation, as long as it's internal and not external, you're fine. And as for taking it away and practicing it on your own, the prerequisite for success really is to make it regular. Try to make it daily if you can. And if you are new to it, try to make it the same time each day if you can. If you're not on shift work of some sort, that does help you to remember to do it. And then once you start seeing the benefits for yourself, which I think won't actually take too long, then you have this motivation to do it even without having to force yourself anymore, and it becomes much easier after that.
And we have a question from our remote audience.
We actually have two. So Cynthia from our remote audience asks, would you recommend it prior to sleeping at night?
I certainly would recommend meditation prior to sleeping at night for those who are poor sleepers. Some people said, well, how about I just lie down and meditate then? Well, what happens is generally you just go to sleep, and I think you don't really need a training course to do that, okay? So the way to do it is to sit for meditation, like sit in your normal posture of meditation for your 20 minutes or whatever, prior to lying down and going to sleep. And as you have your mind centered after your meditation, you lie down with your mind still centered. Actually, you'll have a very good night's sleep. And often the thoughts that usually disturbed your ability to fall asleep in the first place will actually be cleared from the mind before you fall asleep. So that would be a very effective way of sleeping better and getting more out of your night's sleep.
And Carolyn from our remote audience as well asks, would you ever couple it with exercising?
Exercise is good. As with the music and so on, some people find if they exercise immediately before meditation, it sets the mood for the meditation practice. And that might be a walk in nature, it might be a jog, just simply having a bit of a sweat that can get things out of your system before you sit down to meditate. That could be good. It's something you can try. Exercises like yoga positions are also very useful because they can help you to have this wonderful posture for the meditation a little bit more easily, so that you can sit comfortably for longer. That, again, is something which would make a lot of sense to practice in tandem with the meditation practice. But as I said, for each person, you should try things, and then you'll know for yourself whether that's really the thing that puts you in the mood for meditation or not. Yeah.
I had a question. What is the good time to meditate and to take the full advantage of it? Like empty stomach would help more or something?
Yeah, good question. The most popular times for meditation in a daily schedule are first thing in the morning. When you wake up, your mind is fairly empty, and you haven't had your breakfast yet. Also, the house is fairly quiet, and sometimes it's if your thoughts haven't woken up, so you have a clear mind to meditate. It's a good start to the day. Other people, like we had from the remote audience, who have problems sleeping, it might make sense to meditate immediately before going to bed. So that is another popular time. But I have known people meditate successfully in their lunch hour, even go and sit in their car if there's not a space in their workplace to practice meditation. Go and sit in their car during their lunch hour and meditate. If they have a very stressful job, sometimes that works out quite well.
How to time your meditation? Should you put an alarm and just like wake up out of meditation, or what is the best way to like time?
The question was how to measure the time when you're meditating. These days, people have apps on their iPhone which count down backwards. If not, you can use something much more basic and just simply peep at it with one eye as you're meditating. But if it has an alarm, try to make it one that isn't too sort of jarring at the end, otherwise you might end up jumping out of your skin.
Do you feel, is there any added benefits coupling it with gratitude?
With, sorry, gratitude?
Gratitude.
Well, there are many qualities of mind which are conducive to meditation. Gratitude is a sort of positive, enriching sort of emotion. So practices which involve gratitude would generally enhance your meditation practice. But not just gratitude, many other things as well, respect, compassion, all these things would come into it. And there's a sort of, I talk about meditation as if it's an isolated practice which doesn't link to anything else very much apart from stress relief, but actually within spiritual traditions, Buddhism, Hinduism and so on, meditation is embedded in a whole lot of other qualities of mind, including things like gratitude, which do help you to depthen your practice further. So that's the reason why things like that are there, because they are connected. But it's not to say that you can't practice meditation without those things. But maybe you can take it further with things like that.